They accused me of cheating, destroyed my future, and threw me out like trash. But they didn't know who I would become. I still remember the sound of that gavel. It wasn't a courtroom, but it might as well have been. The school board hearing felt just as cold, just as cruel. Malik Turner, for violation of academic integrity policy. You are hereby expelled from Eastbridge Academy, effective immediately. Silence. I sat frozen in the stiff chair, my backpack still at my feet. It didn't seem real. Just days ago, I was on track to graduate valedictorian, the first in my family to earn a scholarship to Yale. Now I was being erased from the school like a mistake on a whiteboard. My mother gripped my hand tightly, tears in her eyes. She didn't speak. She knew it wouldn't matter. Mr. Connors, the vice principal, had already made up his mind. "We can't afford to make exceptions," he'd said. "The rules are the rules." Except they weren't. Because Kyle Henderson, star quarterback, son of the school's biggest donor, was caught cheating just 2 months earlier. Nothing happened to him. A slap on the wrist. Quietly swept under the rug. But I was the easy scapegoat. The evidence, a mysterious tip and an anonymous screenshot of a study guide that someone claimed was in my locker. I never saw it, never had it. But that didn't stop them. And worst of all, Ms. Rayner, my favorite teacher, the one who told me I had a brilliant mind, said nothing, not one word in my defense. I looked up at her from across the room, silently begging for help. She lowered her eyes. I knew, right then, that I was on my own. The weeks after the expulsion were the darkest of my life. Yale rescinded their offer within days. My scholarship vanished. My name was whispered around town like a warning. That kid who cheated. Such a shame. He had so much potential. Even the corner store clerk who used to smile when I walked in looked at me sideways. Mom tried to hold it together. She took double shifts at the diner, but I saw the change in her. Her shoulders slumped a little lower. Her laughter grew rarer. She blamed herself, quietly, like maybe she hadn't worked hard enough to protect me from the world. I stopped leaving the house. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. All I did was think. Think about how unfair it all was, how no one fought for me, how a lie could erase 10 years of hard work. Then one night I found myself staring at an old photo on my desk, the science fair trophy I won in 8th grade, smiling beside Ms. Rayner. That used to be my proudest moment. Now it burned, not because I lost faith in myself, but because I realized no one else had believed in me when it mattered. That's when the anger turned into something else. Determination. I wasn't going to let them write the end of my story. If they thought I'd fade away, forgotten and bitter, they were wrong. They crushed my dreams, so I built new ones. Stronger, sharper, unstoppable, and they'd live to regret ever crossing me. I enrolled in community college under a different name. No one there knew my story, just that I sat in the front row, asked too many questions, and turned in perfect papers. I got 2 part-time jobs, tech support during the day, grocery store at night. Every break, I studied. Not just school subjects, I read books on business, leadership, digital marketing, startup strategy, venture capital, and coding. I wasn't chasing grades anymore. I was preparing for war. By year 2, I had built a mobile tutoring app with a few classmates. We called it ScholarLink, a platform that paired struggling students with top-tier tutors in real time. It started as a class project, but by year 3, we had 10,000 users, and investors were calling. When I graduated, ScholarLink was generating 6 figures in monthly revenue. I wore a cheap suit to my first investor pitch and walked out with $2 million in seed funding. People started talking. Forbes did a profile on me. From Shame to Silicon. The Redemption of Malik James. I smiled at the headline. But inside, I wasn't looking for redemption. I was looking for justice. Everyone wanted the success story. But they had no idea what it cost me. I didn't build a business. I built a weapon. With the money, I expanded ScholarLink into school districts, offering struggling schools free trials, building relationships with board members, superintendents, and administrators. I made sure to stay under the radar of my old high school until the day they reached out. It was almost poetic. The email came from the district superintendent. We're impressed by ScholarLink's impact across other districts. Our schools are struggling with student performance and staff retention. Would you be open to a meeting? I stared at the signature at the bottom of the message. The school district. My school district. I replied. I'd be honored. 2 weeks later, I walked into a school board meeting dressed in a tailored navy suit. My name was now well known in the education tech space. The press had dubbed me the Bill Gates of tutoring. They welcomed me like a celebrity. But I kept my eyes locked on the principal sitting at the end of the long conference table. Mr. Dalton. He looked older, tired, but the arrogance hadn't left his eyes. He didn't recognize me yet. Perfect. He once told me I'd never amount to anything. Now he was asking me to save his district. I gave a flawless pitch. Polished slides, data-rich analytics, a detailed improvement plan showing how ScholarLink could raise test scores, cut dropout rates, and reduce teacher burnout. I saw them nodding. They were hooked. When I finished, the room applauded. The superintendent shook my hand. But before the deal could be signed, I said, "I'd like to make one addition." Everyone turned. I looked directly at Principal Dalton. I want the district to publicly acknowledge a miscarriage of justice that happened a decade ago. A student was expelled for cheating, despite zero evidence. That student was me. Silence. Dalton's face turned pale. The room froze. Superintendent. Wait, you were... Me. Yes, and I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for truth. Before I save your schools, you need to admit the system failed a kid it should have protected. You'd be surprised how quickly people find their conscience when their funding is on the line. The following week, the school board released a statement. After reviewing past disciplinary actions, we acknowledge that a former student, Malik James, was wrongfully expelled and offer a formal apology for the harm caused. It went viral. CNN, MSNBC, education podcasts, everyone wanted the story. Tech founder brings justice to school that failed him. Dalton resigned days later. ScholarLink signed a $3.2 million contract with the district. And me? I bought the old school building. The day I got the keys to the building, I stood in front of my old high school, now abandoned, overgrown with weeds and broken windows. The place where I had once been humiliated. The place where I lost everything. And now, I owned it. I could have leveled the whole thing, turned it into condos or a parking lot. But I had a better idea. I called up architects, designers, community leaders, former students. What rose from the rubble wasn't just a building, it was a beacon. I renamed it the Phoenix Center. A school, not just for academics, but for second chances. Free tuition, modern tech, therapists on site, a curriculum built around growth, not punishment. It became a place where kids who were once written off could rise again. The first student enrolled, a teen named Jalen, kicked out of his last school for attitude problems. I saw myself in his eyes, smart, angry, misunderstood. Now he had a place that saw his potential. Revenge is sweet, but rebuilding something better? That's real power. Reporters came to cover the opening. Local news called it a radical reimagination of education. Students flourished. Test scores jumped. Bullying reports dropped. I walked the halls sometimes, watching the new generation thrive where I had once felt trapped. And in one classroom, I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. A teacher had printed out my story, pinned it on the bulletin board under a banner that read, "From expelled to empowered. Never let them define you." One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Malik, I was one of the teachers who didn't speak up when you were expelled. I knew you didn't cheat. I stayed silent because I was afraid of losing my job. I've regretted it every day. Watching what you've built, I just want to say, I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you. Ms. Carter, I cried for the first time in years. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know. I was a seed,